Representative Eric Swalwell, Democrat from California, and now presidential candidate Eric Swalwell from California. You guys know who he is? Do you remember him? Let me refresh your memory. This is from last fall, last November. That he had a little bit of a Twitter spat with a guy named Joe Biggs. So it started off with Joe saying, so basically a Rep Swalwell wants a war, because that's what you would get. You're out of your effing mind if you think I'll give up my rights and give the government all the power. Now this was Joe responding to a gun control measure, assault weapons ban so-called, that Swalwell was proposing at the time. And then Swalwell responded back to Mr. Biggs and said, and it would be a short war, my friend. The government has nukes, too many of them, but they're legit. I'm sure if we talked, we could find common ground to protect our families and communities. And then after that, Joe Biggs responded back and said, so our government would nuke its own country in order to take guns? Wow. And then Swalwell responded after that and said, don't be so dramatic. No one is nuking anyone or threatening that. I'm telling you, this is not the 18th century. The argument that we would go to war with your government if an assault weapons ban was in place is ludicrous and inflames the gun debate, which is what you want. You guys remember that? How crazy that was? This was a United States congressman that literally threatened to nuke people if they were going to stand up against an unconstitutional gun ban and a tyrannical government. And I would note, he tries to use this little thing, let's find common ground, which is what they always try to say, common sense, common ground, maybe we can agree on something. Now you tell me, is that common ground with somebody who is in the United States Congress and sits on the committee that could have jurisdiction and power to a point over the use of weapons? Do you think that's common ground and reasonable that he's going to threaten the use of nukes? I mean, how reasonable is that? This is the reasonable Representative Swalwell that is now a presidential candidate. And I would note the thing he said in his second tweet when he was trying to walk it back a little bit, right? To keep it where there wouldn't be a peasant uprising, in his words, the way he would look at it rather. And he says, I'm telling you, this is not the 18th century. And you know what, Representative Swalwell? You're lucky it's not the 18th century, because if you started talking like that, back in the 18th century, the mood this country was in, the way this country actually went to war against Great Britain, not for tea, not for the taxation of tea, no. That's what they tell you in the public schools. It was for confiscating arms, confiscating gunpowder, confiscating cannons. That's why we had the Revolutionary War. That's what tipped it off. So, yeah, you're right, Representative Swalwell. We're not living in the 18th century. Because if we were living in the late 1700s, I doubt you'd get by with saying that for too long. So, yeah, duly noted. And you're lucky you weren't around back then, Mr. Swalwell, because I don't think that kind of talk would have stood very, very far when this country was founded. When our country actually believed in the amendments that were written. When people were willing to literally go to war and become traitors to try to fight for liberty, to try to fight to go away from the crown of the king, and to have a new country, an experiment, a country that was founded on the basis that the people would govern. Not people that sit up in high towers, people that are up on the hill, Capitol Hill, that have control of nukes. No, that wouldn't slide in 1776. Well, will it slide today? Let's see, guys, what do you think? This guy is currently a presidential candidate, and when he was interviewed by CNN, this is just last Sunday, April 14th. So, and Sunday, he said his call for a ban on assault weapons was not a step towards broader gun bans. And to quote Swalwell, he said, keep your pistols, keep your long guns, keep your shotguns. Swalwell said on Sunday on CNN's State of the Union with Jake Tapper, when he was asked about the gun owners' anxiety that an assault weapons ban could lead to incremental step to a larger ban. Geez, I wonder. Do you think maybe it might lead to a bigger step? Remember, this is the guy that said if we tried to fight back against an assault weapons ban, the government has nukes. And too many of them. But they're legit. Now, he continued, I want the most dangerous weapons, these weapons of war, out of the hands of the most dangerous people. Yeah, dangerous people? How much more dangerous does it get than threatening to nuke people? I don't know of a gun owner around that has threatened to nuke anybody. So, who's the most dangerous, Mr. Swalwell? And then he goes on to say, the article says he has called for a ban on military-style semi-automatic assault weapons. Oh, really? Something like this, Mr. Swalwell, would you consider this to be a military-style assault weapon? Do you even know what this is? Is this a machine gun, Mr. Swalwell? What is this? No. This is a semi-automatic firearm that's completely legal to own. And, by the way, what's wrong with us owning machine guns, Mr. Swalwell? Wasn't the Second Amendment written because it said it was being necessary to the security of a free state, that the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed? It doesn't say optional, it says necessary. And, who would we be free from? Maybe tyranny, maybe tyrannical leaders, maybe, quite possibly, people that would threaten us with nukes. So, yeah, what would be the reasonable amount of arms to take away from the people who, it's affirmed in the Second Amendment, not granted by the Second Amendment, but affirmed in the Second Amendment, because the Founding Fathers were smart enough, and they knew that they were just affirming God-given rights that are given to us by our Creator. The only thing the Second Amendment does is it forbids the government and forbids people like Representative Swalwell and many, many others from infringing, so they can invoke tyranny, so they can threaten us with nuclear weapons. He goes on to say that his buyback, the ban would come with criminal consequences for people who did not participate in the buyback. Yeah, I'm sure. What kind of consequences, Mr. Swalwell? People coming to people's houses with guns? Something like that? Or what if that doesn't work? What if the people say no? We're not going to take it. We're not going to give you back. They're not for sale. Because you can't buy back something you didn't already own. So if people don't go for the buyback, then what? I don't know. Nukes? Is that what you're going to do? So, and then he said there would be an alternative, which would keep them at hunting clubs or a shooting range. Yeah, that's going to go over real good, because that's exactly what they do in a lot of places in Europe, right? Where you can technically own the firearm, but it has to be under lock and key at a shooting range, where you can only use it when you're there under supervision, lock and key, with special permits from your masters, from the Queen, from the King, from the government. Yeah, right. Like Mr. Swalwell said, yeah, this isn't the 17th century anymore, but I think we need to remember back, guys, to the 17th century, to the 18th century, rather, to the late 1700s. We formed this country. This country was formed by our founding fathers to escape the king, to escape the queen, and the rule, and the tyranny, and the fact that the government would grant privileges. No, this is the United States of America. Our government doesn't grant privileges to own guns. Because if it's a privilege, yeah, you can go ahead and keep it locked up at a range, keep it under lock and key, ask permission from your master of when you can get your gun out to shoot it. But no, we don't have the privilege to own guns here, Mr. Swalwell. This is the United States of America, and our rights are given by God and endowed on us by our Creator. And it is necessary to the security of a free state that the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So no, I'm not buying it, dude. Oh, and by the way, you threaten me and all the other gun owners that would stand up for the Second Amendment and aren't going to let you become the next tyrannical leader. You threatened us with nukes. So, no, I'm not buying it. So, you guys can laugh all you want at this Representative Swalwell. You can say he doesn't have a chance, whatever. But here's the fact of the matter. Our society's gotten to the point now, and the left wing of the Democratic Party has gone so left that they're now brazen and emboldened enough to get on TV and say things like this, and to get on Twitter and threaten the possible use of nuclear weapons, and to say they're going to buy back our weapons. As I said before, weapons they never owned to begin with, so they have no authority to buy them back. They're emboldened enough now to say they're going to buy our weapons. Oh, but by the way, if we don't, it could lead to criminal penalties. Yeah, you know what those criminal penalties would be? Felonies. Prison time. Why was the Revolutionary War fought? I would say to avoid this exact thing. And I would note one more thing he said. He said that the United States should follow Australia and New Zealand, which both moved to quickly put in place new gun control measures. Yeah, they did, didn't they? And the King of England did certain things too before 1776, right? So here's what I recommend to people like Swalwell. If you want the United States of America to be like England and Great Britain, and you want the United States to be like Australia and New Zealand, then go move there. You'd be much happier there. You could rule over the people there, if that's what the people want in that country. And gun control is considered to be normal there. and you don't have the right to keep and bear arms. Well, guess what, buddy? You're in the United States of America. And this is not New Zealand, this is not England, and this is not Australia. So as long as you're in the United States and you're collecting a paycheck from the government, you work for us, dude. So I want you guys to remember that. Remember who these people work for, and remember there's elections coming up. And there's people running like Eric Swalwell that want to take your guns. He's not joking about this. He wants to take your guns, and if you don't agree to sell them to him, there would be criminal penalties. So, and then if that doesn't work, he might nuke you. So just remember, guys, this is going on. If you don't want to live in Australia and you don't want to live in England, nothing against those countries, but I don't want to live there. I want the right to keep and bear arms, to be protected, not by the government. We can't trust them to protect our rights, by the people, like me and you and everybody else. So just watch these guys, watch what they're doing. Representative Swalwell, you want to represent Australia and New Zealand, move there. Until then, this is United States of America, and you work for us, and I will do the best I possibly can to make sure you are not going to be the next president of the United States. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and have a good one.